Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video. I'm really excited for this one because it is the start of my 2023 money series that I'm going to be doing here over on my channel, basically in response to my first video that I always do in January, which is like a budget overview, my annual budget for the year. As a mum, as a working mum, as someone that has a lot of expenses and like I have a different income every single year really. I do side hustles like YouTube. I have I change jobs, like anyone else does. I go on maternity leave, and I pay for childcare, all of those kind of things. Like, they change and they flex so much for me every single year, depending on like what stage of life I'm at, if I'm getting married, if I've got, a new house that we've just moved into or whatever, etc, etc. Basically just life. Life happens, right? And you've got to be flexible and you've got to adapt and you've got to budget your money like accordingly as your life changes. So what I wanted to do is a video on my channel for mums, accessible, useful information that I have found that I would just like to share with you guys about how I budget my money and sort of just talk about money a little bit. I don't often see mums like me talking about money, and I think it's one of those things that's a universal thing that we all have to deal with, so let's talk about it. I wanted to do a sort of where to start when you're trying to think about managing your money this year, just like a first video to kick off this series, so I hope you enjoy. Okay, so these are my top 6 tips, steps, I guess, as to how I would say if you're like completely new to this and you've never really thought about it, you just live paycheck to paycheck and you just like your bills come out and it's blah blah blah, and you've never really thought about your money in this way, the top 6 tips that I would give you to start like managing your money effectively. So let's start off with number 1, which is get a spreadsheet. Everyone needs a spreadsheet or some way of managing their money in either a spreadsheet, or I guess if you wanted to do it on paper, pen and paper, then that's totally fine as well, whatever works best for you. However, I definitely find that a spreadsheet is much more effective to me because I can access that spreadsheet on my phone, on my laptop. It updates on both of those devices whenever, and I like that it kind of does the maths for me at the end. I've actually, if you guys don't know, formulated a spreadsheet that's got all the formulas in it and it does all the maths for you automatically that I sell over on Etsy, and I'll pop a link down in the description box if you wanted to go over and purchase that. It's really affordable for what it is, and it will help you manage your monthly income in a way that has transformed my life for sure. Essentially, the premise of having a spreadsheet is to understand where your incomings and your outgoings are, and that is like basics, budgeting 101, is to understand how much money you have coming in and how much money you have going out, and then what you've got left over. I like to understand where my money is going as well, so how much I spend on essentials, things that I have to absolutely pay for every single month. And then I can also see like whether I'm prioritizing the right things, so whether I'm spending too much on my food shop, whether I'm, I've got too many subscriptions, those kind of things. But they're the things that come out of my bank account every single month. And then the non-essentials that maybe I could cut down on, for example, takeaways, eating out, things like that. And then equally how much money you've got left over to either save or put towards fun activities for you and your family or anything like that. But you can figure out exactly how much money you've got left over so that on just a random Saturday, you don't just go and do some shopping or something and spend £50 when you just don't really have that £50 to spend on that specific thing, but you do have maybe £20, and it's like knowing that in your mind because your spreadsheet has told you, oh okay, I've got X amount of money to spend on shopping, but then I can spend X amount on makeup or toiletries, and then I've got X amount for buying toys for my little one, rather than just like, oh, I've got the money in my bank account, I can spend it on whatever. It's about just understanding where that money's going. The other really cool thing about having a spreadsheet is it's a really good visual tool to help you understand, okay, so I've got this amount of money coming in and I've got this amount of money coming out. Do I need to increase my income? And that can be done in so many ways, going for a promotion at work, or starting a side hustle. And that is, I know that's like a daunting thing for a lot of people, but so many of us are doing this, and I think it's such an awesome way to be able to increase your income. But also, as well as increasing your income, you could potentially even look to decrease your outgoings. And that again is just being a little bit more mindful about what you're spending that money on, whether those things are essential, whether those things are bringing you joy, whether it's just a waste of money. If you're just getting, like, say you go into the office to work every single day and then you get a coffee and a sandwich at lunchtime every single day, how much does that add up to in a month? How much does that add up to in a year? I guarantee you it will shock you. And if you make small changes, like not getting that coffee, not getting that sandwich, or even if you like maybe go to a soft play or whatever with your little one and you get a coffee there every time, take a coffee with you, or something like that. Those little changes make a big impact towards the end of the month and towards the end of the year. And that spreadsheet will help you see that and think, oh, okay, maybe I should think twice about this. Tip or step number 2 would be to set financial goals for yourself, because it's all very well trying to say, oh, I'm going to save money. Unless you have like a specific goal, it's very difficult for you to then keep up with that. So I would always say like, oh, I'm going to save money, and then I didn't have anything in particular that I was saving for, anything that I'd set myself, so I would just go, oh, I've got loads of money now, so I'll go and spend it. Before I had kids, I would basically spend about £1,000 a month on things that I didn't need. I didn't have like a savings goal. I would save up the money, and then because my disposable income was about £1,000, which is insane to think about now, because I do not have that much disposable because of childcare and mortgage and etc, etc. But I had about £1,000 a month, and I would buy house stuff, I'd buy, you know, I'd go out for meals, go out for drinks like with friends, just buy, you know, it was mainly food I think that most of my money went on actually. I didn't have like a savings goal, so I would waste all of my money on just like things, and that's fine. Like when you're young and you don't have any like responsibilities and stuff, you know what, like we all do that and we all get things on finance and all that kind of stuff. But I think when you're trying to get like financially fit and setting yourself those financial goals is really important. I've set myself some financial goals which you can go and see in my last finance video, which was all about my 2023 goals and my 2023 budget, which you can go and see down in the description box or on my playlist if you wanted to. But some really good ones and like some overarching ones would be to pay off any high interest debt that you have. So for example, if you've got your car on finance, or if you've got credit cards, or if you've got store cards, they're the worst. Like anything that you are paying additional interest as well as the amount you borrowed, but even more interest on top of, they're the killer. That's you literally throwing your money onto a pit of fire, because you're not getting anything out of that other than the item that you've already purchased. And whether you've got that on finance or whatever, you've got that item and you've borrowed the money for that item, but you're also then paying not just that money back, all this additional interest every single month, every single week, however you're paying it off, just because it's a high interest loan. So to pay off those high interest debts really quickly is so important, and that would be one of my key goals. Like this year, if that sounds like you, I would pay off that instead of saving, instead of investing. I would pay off high interest debt first. That would be my advice. Obviously I'm not a financial advisor. I probably should have said that at the beginning of the video. This is all just my like general advice that I've seen, heard, done. Definitely not financial advice. Definitely focus on that if you're in that position. If you're not, then you can maybe look to other things like starting an emergency fund. I also think that's a really good one to have. I have an emergency fund, basically just that fund of when the boiler breaks, or when like emergencies happen, your dishwasher breaks, literally anything, your car breaks down, just anything that comes up, those annoying adult costs that you just have to factor in. Like emergencies might happen, you might get laid off your job, you might, you know, get made redundant or have to stop work for whatever reason, and you don't have that income. To have like a good sum of money, and I think they suggest having like 2 to 3, maybe even 6 months worth of your wages is a really good place to be. I currently have 6 months worth of wages put away in savings, just in case like the worst happened and I couldn't work, or you know, there was something that happened that I needed to dip into that fund for. I've got it there, and actually I think I'm probably going to have to use some of that on my maternity leave for baby number 2, but that money's there and I feel secure knowing that, like if anything bad were to happen or an emergency happened, I have that money there saved, ready to go. So emergency fund is a really, really good one. You can start adding to that like really in dribs and drabs, by the way. You don't have to do that all at once, obviously. Other really common ones are saving for a house, understanding how much you need to save for a house. It gives you a really good goal, and then you can start putting money towards a little pot of money like that. I say little pot, it's a big pot when you're saving for a house, as we all know. You could also look to save for holidays. So every single year, if you want to go on a holiday, instead of having this big expense towards the holiday, why don't you put little bits and bobs away throughout the year, and then you can go on a lovely holiday with your family. Even if that's like £50 a month or £20 a month, like depending on what your sort of situation is, you can put away little bits of bobs throughout the year and then go on a lovely holiday with your friends and family if you wanted to. And then another one is like home improvements, for example, like we're getting our kitchen done downstairs, so that's something that we're saving money towards. We're not actually getting it done just yet, but we're saving money towards it so that we can do that in the Easter time. Having those like financial goals set, I think, is really, really important to actually achieving them. Number 3 on my step-by-step guide, or like my advice, I guess, would be to change your mindset. And this is a really, really hard one. I think it's like hardwired into me from my mum, my parents, their background, to be like frugal. Like it just is. Don't get me wrong, there are many times where I've like diverted away from that and splurged and, you know, chucked money away, like haven't we all? But I think in this day and age, it's really, really difficult to have this mindset because it's just a consumer society, isn't it? Like we're always being sold something constantly. We always see what everyone else has constantly. And I think it's really difficult to be frugal in like today's society, which I think is why these kind of videos are really important, to kind of just bring us back down to earth and think, actually, like, I don't have £100,000 a year to spend on like amazing Range Rovers and go to the Maldives and Dubai. Like I just see everyone in Dubai at the moment. I'm like, I'm so jealous. Like, why can't I be in Dubai? It's because I don't have the money to go to Dubai. Like, I'm sorry. Let's just bring us back down to earth and realise that we don't all have those lifestyles, and just because we see them and we advertise them doesn't mean that we're failures for not having that. We're just normal people. That's just life. I think it's the whole keeping up with the Joneses. It used to be like our next door neighbour, making sure that our, you know, front garden was like as beautiful as theirs, and now it's like next level because we get to see everything on social media all the time. Actually, you know, we're trying to keep up with so much and do so much and be so much, and we think we have to be that in order to be like accepted, but that's just not the case. It's just not true. And to change our mindset from that to actually, no, be yourself, be me, live within your means and get the things and do the things that, you know, please you and like serve you in your life and bring you joy, not necessarily what other people might want, but what you want. And often those things aren't the materialistic things. They're just not. We all love a bit of retail therapy, don't get me wrong. And for example, I really wanted a amazing pregnancy pillow. I wanted a £150 pregnancy pillow because everyone told me it was the best one. I saw it everywhere. It's advertised to me loads on Instagram and my ads. And then I was like, oh, I was so close to buying it. And then I just looked at myself in the mirror. I was like, £150 for a pregnancy pillow. I'm sure it is amazing, but I can't do it. So I bought the £50 one with a 20% off voucher, and it's actually just got delivered today, and I'm really excited to try it. I'm pleased with myself that I did that. That also had amazing reviews, and you know what, like, it was just keeping myself in check and thinking, actually, like, no, I don't have £150 to spend on this. I can't justify it. What could I do with that additional, well, I only paid £40 for it in the end, so what could I do with that additional £110? There are so many things. I can put that towards our holiday that we're going to in Wales, spend it on days out with my family. You know, they're the things that bring me joy, so that's what I'm going to prioritise. Other tangible, practical advice on this section is to stop getting things on finance, because essentially what you're doing is getting something you can't afford because you don't have the money for it upright, and then paying it off again like later with increased interest often. I know there are some where you don't have to pay interest, it's 0% interest. It's still a mindset thing, like I would still try and avoid that, but obviously sometimes like we need something urgently, like say our Hoover breaks and we need a new Hoover. I get it, like you might have to get that on finance. That's, you know, there are always those situations that come up. But essentially what you're doing is buying something you can't afford. Why don't you just get something cheaper that you can afford? I know that you might not want the cheaper version, etc. Buy nice or buy twice, that whole phrase. But still, if you cannot afford it, you shouldn't really be buying it. Like, that's just like budgeting 101, right? And I think because there's so many options for us to buy things on finance now, it's difficult for us to remember that, but actually that's the smarter thing to do. That's the richer thing to do. People that have things on finance and have a lot of, you know, monthly outgoings, just because they have the nicer stuff doesn't mean they're richer. I think that's really important to remember. But anyway, like I said, that's another thing of like keeping up with the Joneses, thinking that you want this thing because you've seen it, so you get it on finance when you can't actually afford it. It's just an ongoing cycle and it's going to get you into debt eventually. Another piece of advice on changing your mindset is to stop impulse buying. So for example, I thought long and hard about that pregnancy pillow, and I didn't just go press send, yet buy, like I'm just buying that now and then it was done. I thought about it long and hard. I thought about this for like 2 weeks straight before actually pressing go, send the payment to the company. And I actually ended up obviously saving money by doing that. If I'd have just done the impulse buy thing and just bought the expensive one straight away, which I would have done because at that time that's exactly what I wanted to do, then I would have lost £110. It's just that, like, thinking about these impulse purchases a little bit harder and longer, even if that's just leaving something in your basket for overnight, sleep on it, and then you can actually just reevaluate in the morning, like, oh, was I just doing that because I was sad? Was I just doing that because I was bored? Was I just purchasing that because I was like scrolling and I'd seen it loads of times on Instagram? What was it that made me do that? And then if you think about it overnight and think, no, I need this thing, it's gonna bring me joy, or it's gonna give me purpose, or it's, you know, whatever it might be, then obviously purchase it. But it's just about thinking about them a little bit harder before you just absolutely impulse buy. I think that in itself will save you hundreds of pounds per year. And then the last thing on changing your mindset for me was like a really big game changer, was to prioritize, like think about what my costs are throughout the year. Like for example, a holiday. I'd like to go on a holiday once a year at least. That's like something that I really would like to do. I would like to buy Christmas presents for all of my friends and family every single year. Something I'd like to do. Birthday presents, I'd like to save towards my MOT, those things, the things that come up every single year, I like to save towards those every single month, so that when that event comes around, like Christmas for example, you don't just have a big month of expenses, you have spread that out throughout the year. So December's not a problem financially for you because you've saved since the January. Same with my MOT, same with holidays. If you just put a little, like figure out how much you want to spend on Christmas. Say you want to have £600 in December to spend on all of those things, then you need to put away £50 a month every single month until December, and then you're going to have that £600. Obviously that £50 that you are putting towards savings, you can't spend on things like going to the shops, or you can't, you know, always spend that £50 on the lovely days out. It's just about prioritising things and figuring out what your nice to haves are that you can maybe drop a little bit of, so that you can have like an easier year throughout the entire year. And I feel like that's a massive thing about changing your mindset, just planning ahead a little bit to save yourself, your future self, the grief. Step or tip number 4 is to set up direct debits and standing orders so that things happen automatically without you having to do it manually. So for me, in terms of our bills and everything like that, I have a direct debit that goes into a joint bank account with my husband, and then all of our joint bills go out of our joint bank account on the first of the month. So my direct debit goes to our bank account on the first of the month. I don't even see that money, disappears, don't see it, don't spend it. And then from our joint bank account, the bills come out throughout the month. I think I would say, if you can, to set up all of your bills to come out on the first of the month, or the second or the third, whatever your preference is, but early in that month, so that you don't see that money and then think, oh, I've got £100 extra this month, I can go and get this thing, like whatever it might be, because it's going to be used for a bill. But if it's not there, if the money's physically not there, it's a lot easier for you to just ignore it. So for example, like we've called everyone and asked for our bills to come out, I think probably on like the 2nd or 3rd, because if it's like a Saturday or a Sunday, it might not come out. So we've said like the 2nd or the 3rd for all of our bills to come out, and then that money just goes, we've spent, like we've paid the money, bills are paid, and then we don't see it, so we don't spend we don't go over on our food shop or something, for example. Another really cool thing that I've done is to set up standing orders to separate bank accounts or savings accounts, so that they are separate from my current account bank. So what I mean by that is I've got my bank that my like income comes into, and that's like the card I have, like on my Apple Pay, the card I use to spend money, right? What I'd have on there is a standing order from that bank account at the beginning of the month to go out to my Hyperdraw account, which is an app that I use to separate my money, to save money and things like that. So that way, the money that I've said that I want to save or to put towards my repayment, my loan repayment, or my emergency funds, or my home improvements, anything, whatever your financial goals are, that happens automatically without me having to direct it. And again, that means that what's left over in my current account is money that I can spend. So I don't have to worry that I'm going to go over my budget and it's all just this, oh, how much money do I, and having to do calculations every day. It literally just happens. My sinking fund, my emergency fund, it's all sorted. And then the money that's left in my current account, on my bank, on the app, I can see that I've got £150 a month to spend on going to soft play, or like just the little things that you spend like your daily like money on, essentially, just so that you don't spend all of your money on random stuff just because you've got the money in your bank account. And you can, it actually allocates it to specific things, and all you've got left in your current account is your actual spending money. That's how I see it. Step number 5 is your sinking fund and emergency funds. I basically have spoken about this already, but to go into a little bit more depth of emergency and sinking funds. Your emergency fund, which is about 3 to 6 months worth of wages in a pot of money somewhere, whether that's a savings account, wherever that money might be. 3 to 6 months worth of wages is such a good place to be in terms of savings, not going towards anything, not buying a car with it, not going on a house deposit, but actually just as an emergency fund. Like, it makes you feel so secure, and it's really, really amazing to have actually achieved that. So for example, I have had amazing success doing this. Like, it didn't happen overnight, don't get me wrong, but drip by drip by drip, bit by bit, I've put in money to this emergency fund, and now I'm in a position where I've got 6 months worth of wages in a pot of money that I can access at any time if I wanted to, but it is only for emergencies. So it's for those occasions where something bad happens and you need, you know, that money. Like, you know, whatever your definition of that is, for me, that is something like if my car breaks down, if I need to take unexpected time off work, if, you know, I can't get paid for whatever reason. I think when I'm on maternity leave and I get my statutory maternity pay, which is much less than my normal income, I might have to dip into this to like cover bills and things. But for me, not necessarily an emergency fund. I might not have to do that, but worst comes to worst, the money's there and available for me to do that, and I've worked really hard to get that pot of money, so I feel secure in doing that. And then secondly, you've got sinking funds, which is slightly different, and these are basically saving up bits of money throughout the year for big expenses, which we've spoken about already. Like, we spoke about Christmas, we spoke about birthdays and holidays. That's exactly what this is. So sinking funds is one of my favorite things that I've like discovered in terms of like my money management, because it just makes my life so much easier. My future self like is so grateful that I've done it. So for example, again, we're going on holiday. I don't have to worry about it financially because I've already put money towards it in little bits that I didn't really even notice. And now I've got my pot of money there ready to go on holiday and have a lovely time. So it's just planning ahead, and having, again, the spreadsheet I mentioned right at the beginning of the video is exactly how I do that. So I figure out how much I'm going to spend on a holiday, for example, and then I divide it by the amount of months that I've got to save for it, and I put that amount away every single month to prepare. And it's just the best thing ever. Like, I just love it. I love this method. I think these two things, an emergency fund and a sinking fund, are the two most important things after paying off your bills and your high interest debt. You can obviously pay off your high interest debt as well as having like saving towards emergency and sinking funds. It's just spreading yourself a little bit thinner, but those are your priorities, and that's absolutely fine. Like, I'm doing exactly that. I'm paying off debt as well as putting money into an emergency fund as well as putting money into my sinking funds. I'm not then, like, I'm spreading it a little bit thinner, so I'm not going to achieve any one of those goals quicker than the other, but that's how I've chose to do it. You can obviously prioritise it, pay off all of your debt first, and then go on to an emergency fund, and then go on to sinking funds. I like to spread it across because then I'm, you know, prioritising all of these three important areas at the same time. I've mentioned it already in this video, but I use an app called Hyperjar, which is really, really good. It's free, completely free, which is why I really like it, and it's completely accredited and everything. I use an app called Hyperjar to basically put my money into separate pots. I've got different pots for different things, like paying off my loan, putting towards home improvements like the kitchen, holiday, like all of these different things, and my MOT, Christmas, birthdays, etc. Like all of the things that I've mentioned to you already, I put them into different pots because then I can visually see it. It's nice and aesthetically pleasing. I just like the app a lot. I think there are other ones, other accounts that do that as well, but I know that Hyperjar works for me, so that's the one that I would say potentially give it a go. Tip number 6 on how to, you know, start money managing like properly, like budgeting 101, is to start making your money work for you. This is slightly more advanced, I guess, if you're literally just starting to budget. Like, definitely this is the last step. This is not where to start. But essentially what this means is, when you're saving, for example, say you've got your sinking fund or you've got your emergency fund, that money is probably just sat in a bank account somewhere, right? So you're not earning any interest on that, which basically means it's losing money, because where inflation goes up every single month, your money's staying still, so actually it's depreciating in value. Basically, if it's sat in a savings account with not much of a high interest yield, then you're probably going to be losing money in comparison to inflation. Your money's basically worth less than it was this time 1 year ago, right? So savings accounts generally vary between having an interest rate of 1 to 2.5%, which is fine, but inflation is going up much higher than that, so it's still depreciating in value. A really good thing if you don't need to access this money straight away is to invest. I know a lot of people get really scared about investing. I know that I certainly did at the beginning, but I've been on and off investing for the last couple of years, since like the original lockdown. So for example, if you're saving for a house deposit, for example, and you're not going to use that money at any time for anything else other than buying your house, then maybe investing over a longer period of time, like 2, 3, 4, 5 years, might be a smart move for you, because you will get likely a higher percent interest on that money than if you were just to put it into savings. Obviously there is risk that comes with investing, there always is. There are some schemes though that aren't, like there isn't any risk to, which I'm going to talk about a little bit now. So there are loads of different types of ways you can invest, but my favourite way is ISAs, which is an investment savings account. The two different ISAs that I'm going to talk to you guys about, again there are loads, but the two different ones I'm going to talk to you guys about are fixed rate ISAs and also stocks and shares ISAs. So firstly, you've got fixed rate ISAs, which is a really good way to begin in the whole investing world, I think, because you're basically guaranteed that money as long as you contribute the same amount and don't make any withdrawals for like a year or 2 years, etc. So every single fixed rate ISA is different offers. I think at the moment you can look to achieve 4 or 5% depending on how long you want to keep your money in there. If you keep it in for longer, you can look to achieve more interest. But at the moment, if you're just looking for a 1 year fixed rate ISA, for example, Barclays offer one at this exact time that is a 4% interest guaranteed if you don't make any withdrawals for 1 year. So after a year, you'll achieve 4% interest on the money that you've put in. I think there are caps on it, and you can't just put loads and loads of money into it and then get loads and loads of money back. There are different caps and things, and definitely look into it, but I think it's a really nice little beginner way of investing. You're gonna make your money work for you, but there's no risk, which is very, very appetizing, I think, for a lot of people at the moment. There are loads of comparison sites, and definitely do your research, but they're definitely little things that I would say like are really good for beginners. Secondly are stocks and shares ISAs. This is my preferred way of investing. This is what I do. I really, really love stocks and shares ISAs for so many reasons. The one downside is there's more risk. There's going to be more risk because you're investing in stocks and shares, and the stock market is like this constantly, especially at the moment, but it has been for so long. Where I started investing in 2020, when all of the stocks literally went like this, I bought them when they were down and then like I invested in companies like cruise lines and airlines and like shops at airports and things like that, because I knew that at some point, I didn't know, but I predicted in my head that at some point airlines and, you know, going on holiday and things like that were gonna, you know, go back up after the pandemic, right? Which they did. And then I made loads of money on my stocks and shares, and then sold my stocks and shares when they were higher, at like pre-pandemic levels. So that's where my like love for investing came from, is from doing that. I made a lot of money doing that, and I was really, really, really pleased with it. I think the thing is, there's more risk, but there's more chance for a reward. I think over the historic span of the stock market, it's not absolutely not guaranteed, but if you look at the pattern over the course of the last 100 years, year by year, 7 to 11% is very, very conservative as an estimate, and it's definitely reflected in my like investments over the years. I invest in very, very, very straightforward things like the FTSE 100 and the S&P 500. So basically what that does, FTSE 100 is the top 100 companies in the UK, and the S&P 500 are the top 500 companies in the US. So they track over 600 combined different companies as a whole. So if one of those companies went bust, then you've still got, you know, you've still got others. So it's like tracking the whole of the stock market rather than tracking individual companies. That's my preferred method. You don't have to do that, but I definitely think it's the safest way of investing. Again, not financial advice, but it's definitely, based on my experience, what the best method is. Also, the stock market goes up and down, yeah? So if you invest £100 today and then tomorrow it falls to £10, it doesn't matter, that's not real. You haven't lost money until you withdraw it. Once you withdraw the money, that's the only time it matters. So when you buy and when you sell is the only thing that matters. Whether it goes up, down, it really doesn't matter. Try not to look at it every single day. But basically, what matters is when you come to withdraw that money, have you made money? And if the answer is yes, then you're winning. And it's much better than putting it into, for example, a savings account. That's how I look at it. Over my time of investing, I've probably made about £4,000, £5,000 from investing. I've withdrawn money at different points, like to buy this house, to pay for the wedding. I took money out of my ISA, my stocks and shares ISAs, to pay for those things. But those were investments that it was free money essentially to me, because I put money into it and then I got a lot more money out of it. And that is sort of, that's a very, very basic dummy's guide to investing, but please go and do a lot more research and don't listen to me for any financial advice. But that's what I've done, and that's my method. So anyway, those are my 6 tips to manage your money more effectively, like step-by-step guide, I guess, as to how to start managing your money in 2023. I really hope you found this helpful. Let me know if you want to see more videos like this. I'm really keen to start a little series here on my channel talking about money in an accessible, normal way and normalizing it. And let me know what you think. Please give it a like if you like this kind of content, and it will make me, you know, more encouraged to make more videos like this. Please don't forget that you can download my budget spreadsheet as well from Etsy in the link down below in the comment section. Make sure to give the video a big like if you do like my money management sort of videos, my finance videos, and yeah, I'll make sure to, you know, do some more. For now guys, I'm gonna love you and leave you, and I'm gonna see you in the next one. Bye!